So tell me, Sam, what is a turnaround leader?
A turnaround leader is a term that is used very loosely. But a turnaround leader, when they refer to a turnaround leader, it's the context, the organization that the turnaround leader is assigned to. For example, in the state of Georgia, we have priority schools, which is our lowest 5% of the schools in the state of Georgia. And these schools are low performing. They've been low performing for a long time, and the students are not even meeting the state standards. And so you have a culture there where the school is dysfunctional. And so those schools are in a state of emergency. There's an urgent need. And so principals who go into those schools need a different set of skills to move those schools and to turn those schools around. And so people have to understand it's the organization that the individual is going into. And so with that in mind, then you want an individual who has certain skills, who can go in there immediately and get quick results, and go in there immediately and be able to align him or herself with those staff members who are making a difference and identify those staff members.
So Kwame, I assume that the school you're at was a turnaround school when you went there?
Yes, it was. I inherited a school that had a very bad reputation, not only in the community, but within the district itself. Student achievement was a major issue, and as we know, the CRCT is how the public views student achievement, so we needed immediate successes on our assessment at the end of the year. Discipline, of course, always falls into that same scenario where you have discipline issues and a lack of organization as a school itself. You're going to have a hard time in getting students to perform if they don't feel safe, or if they're thinking about other things outside of academics. And if the teachers don't feel like they're supported in their classrooms, then they too will not perform at their best. So I have inherited Turner Middle School, the best middle school in Georgia, and we have students that are mixed in diversity. We have about 45% African Americans, approximately 38% Hispanics, 17 to 18% whites, and a mix of Asians and Indians and Africans, and a mix of other mixes to complete the package. And it's a beautiful place to be. We are turning it around. Student behavior, I won't say it's at zero, but 90% better than it was. And student achievement is definitely up.
So let's think back to 3 years ago when you first went to that school. What did you do during your first year at Turner Middle School?
Well, I knew the perception of the school had to change, and that perception was deeply ingrained in the entire district of Douglas County. So when the name was mentioned, as I was entering the school, people would say, oh no, you're gonna have to fire all of the teachers, you're gonna have to call the police every day, you're gonna just have a very hard time dealing with that. So my first thing was to change the mindset of the community, and I believe that that can be accomplished by the words that you present to the community and the actions that you take immediately. So first thing I did was went outside and changed the marquee to "We are the best middle school in Georgia," and it has remained there for 3 years. That I changed the motto of the school to "We are the best middle school in Georgia." We put that on our letterhead, and now it's coming out of the mouths of the children. It's coming out of the mouths of people in the county office, people in the community, because they bought into it. It's a mindset that you have to change, have the students to believe that they are better than what they've heard. Because as adults, we are the ones who dictate what the children do, and not vice versa. I have a saying that the at-risk child was born and lives in the minds of adults and not in the minds of children. And so once children understand that we are supporting them, and I'm able to get adults on our team that support the vision of greatness, it becomes much easier at that time.
How did you go about working with the teachers, and how did they buy into that theme?
Well, working with adults is much more challenging, in my opinion, than working with students, because adults come with their own philosophies over time. But I also believe that most teachers want an opportunity to teach and to be in an environment where they are supported. So my main goal for teachers and adults in the building, regardless of their job description, was to provide an environment that was welcoming and pleasant, where students abided by the rules and facilitated an environment for learning in the highest possible way without taking away from the creativity of the teachers. I wanted them to feel comfortable enough to be creative and take those chances, if you will, and experiment with their own learning and to grow and to become more professionally developed in their own craft, allowing them to have freedom to do what they wanted to do, but at the same time laying down a strong foundation of what that would look like. So I often think to myself, I came with a bowl, the structure, the bowl, the teachers put in the soup or the cereal, hot, cold, doesn't matter, but I just provided that foundation piece for them to put in the ingredients that they needed to make a good dish.
You mentioned earlier about when you were assigned to the school that they mentioned that you had to fire all the teachers.
Right.
Tell us about how you assessed the teachers and their influence. Were there ineffective teachers there? Were there good teachers there? How did you go about, identifying that?
Actually, I don't buy into the philosophy that you have to go in and fire everyone. You do have to learn your personnel and the personalities, and there are going to be immediate conflicts in the beginning because, coming in as a new principal, you tend to make some changes that everyone is not comfortable with. So, in identifying the effective teachers, it takes a year, basically. First thing that pops out is the results that they're able to achieve at the end of the year. How many parent calls and complaints did they get throughout the course of the year? How effective are they in submitting documentation on time? How do they perform their duties and responsibilities? Do they get to work? It's an ongoing checklist. So you're looking at every single thing that they do as a teacher. And when you walk by their door, are the students engaged, or are they up and not paying attention? Is the teacher up facilitating instruction, or are they behind the desk on their cell phone, on Facebook, or any other kind of social media? So it's an ongoing process. But I will say that I have a group of great teachers. The community did not believe that at the time, and I think they probably had the opportunity to not be great and did not have the motivation to be great. But once you give them that platform and that structure that they truly want, I believe you can go into any school and basically take teachers and make them step up to a certain level by raising the expectations on everyone and holding the bar. And you also have to demonstrate that. You just can't say it and not be that. You have to be what you expect. And so most of my teachers are very good. I've had a few that have had to leave, of course. It's not going to be perfect. And we strive every day to bring out the perfection in our teachers. Another one of my saying to the staff is, I know life goes on. I know you're going to have deaths in your family. I know you're going to be sick. If you come to work, I need 100% of whatever you have. So if you come in the door with 65% of what you have that day, I need 100% of that 65. So just keeping them focused.
So your expectations for what teachers did really changed?
Yes. Yes,
Okay.
yes. They say I have very high standards when it comes to teachers. And every morning I get on the announcements and kind of set the bar for everyone. The students hear the same exact announcement, which kind of puts the pressure on the teachers as well. The announcements go like this. Good morning. Welcome back to the best middle school in Georgia. The time is now 8:23. That's the time I come on. Students, you have two responsibilities at Turner Middle School. Responsibility number one is making A's and B's, and responsibility number two is displaying appropriate behavior so that you can make A's and B's. Young men, you cannot sag your pants. Your shirts must be tucked in. Physical and verbal affrays result in suspension from school. Cell phones and electronic devices not to be seen. You have 3 minutes between classes. Classroom disruptions are not tolerated, and bullying and picking on others result in an alternative school placement. Every day since I began on day one, all the way up to now. And that keeps everybody focused, I think.
So you set a clear bar.
A clear bar.
And I'm sure that anytime you set a clear bar, students, teachers, maybe even parents at sometimes will challenge that, or you were tested.
Right.
How did you respond to being tested, or to resistance to your vision for what should happen at Turner Middle School?
Well, I was very thorough in reading the board policy, so I made sure all policies that we follow are in accordance with board policy. And I think consistency helps you overcome those challenges. It's never easy. I mean, you're going to get complaints, maybe weekly, maybe once a month. But at this point, you know, we've said the same thing for 3 years, every day, sometimes twice a day. There's really nothing to argue about.
You did mention the district policies. Were there things that are ways that the district did things that you had to challenge because it was getting in the way of what you needed to happen at your school?
No, one of the reasons I chose Douglas County, because it's a smaller district. It's not humongous, it's not too small. It's just the right size for you to develop relationships with personnel in the county office and to get the support. I think everyone there that I've come into contact with, and that would be everyone at the central office level, they've been very supportive. As far as things that needed to change, just expectations, the policies that were in place. The only thing that needed to change was the enforcement of it at the school level. The policies were written to help protect the learning environment. They were already there. It just takes a person who's willing to go and do it, regardless of how much stress it may cause you temporarily. The consistency of the application of the policy will eventually make your job very easy.
You appear to have a strong commitment to the school and to the community. What motivates you?
What motivates me is success. As a teacher, success. I'm not going to sit in a classroom and teach and not be successful. If I'm not successful, then why teach? Same thing as a principal. I'm not going to sit in a school. I don't care what the label is. I'm not going to be in a school that's not successful. It could be the worst school. If I accept the job and I sign my contract every year, I have to do the job. And if I don't do the job, I don't think someone should come and have to remove me from the job. I need to remove myself. And I just believe that students can learn. It goes back to the saying, you know, at-risk child is in the adult's head because of their circumstances, but the children don't know anything about that. So any school that I choose to take on is going to be successful in my mind until proven otherwise.
You came into a real tough school, had a history there, bad perception in the community and everything like that. What kind of short wins did you have during your first year, or did you have any wins?
Yes, according to the staff that worked there were a lot of short wins. I did not ask a lot of questions from people who worked in the building. I just had a lot of feedback from county office and some community members. But the short wins would be getting kids out of the hallway when the bell rang. Those 3 minutes, you have 3 minutes, you have 3 minutes, because I'm in the hallway when the bell rings and you don't want to be out there with me, you know, and that's going to be a problem. And so that was an immediate win, just getting the kids in the classroom. Trash on the floor. I went to visit the school outside, you know, paper on the lawn, not fresh white paper, the paper that mats down in the grass like it's been there a month. Yeah, so getting all that cleaned up and making sure we had personnel in place to keep the grounds clean, because, you know, the perception of the school is, you can see the perception when you drive by, and you're going to immediately think of a school and how it is operating based on the grounds and how it's kept. Even if it's trash on the ground, then you're going to think it's a bad school automatically. So those short wins. And then that first year we did very well on the writing assessment, which was in January. So we had some academic success and just little small wins like that. And we also gained a renovation that year because our building it's relatively old, 1969 it was built. And in conversating with the superintendent, they had been renovating buildings anyway. And so the exterior pretty much looks the same, but the interior is like magnificent now, fresh paint. Everything was redone, windows even, and the gymnasium. All of that helps, you know, quick immediate wins, all of that helps. And the restructuring of the landscape as well on the outside of the building. You know, they added a wall and some fresh shrubbery.
You talked about the students and you talked about the teachers. What about the parents? You said that they initially had a negative perception. How have you changed their perception, or has their perception changed?
Yeah, I keep just about every email that I receive that's important, and so I have an email file just labeled emails, and I keep all of my positive comments in those emails, and a lot of them come from parents that email me, or even students, or sometimes teachers, and the perception has changed drastically. Like every time I show up for a function, whether it be a choral event or a band or a play, the parents are saying, thank you. You've done a magnificent job. Again, I can't really define what that job is because I don't know what it was before I arrived, and I didn't ask a lot of questions. But they thank me often, and I feel appreciated in the community. Definitely, there has been a turnaround. I have parents calling me, like even now, my child is going to be there in 2 years. Are you still going to be there? I've heard wonderful things about Turner Middle School. How long are you going to be there, basically? And so I think it's definitely turned around.
Do you consider yourself a turnaround leader, or do you know what is a turnaround leader? Because there's a mindset out there that if you go in and you do little things, you're a turnaround leader. Mm-hmm. Do you consider yourself to be a turnaround leader?
I guess in my mind that I'm still formulating what that definition is. What I do know is that if I'm in a school that needs turning around, and to me a school that needs turning around has severe disciplinary and student achievement gaps, and if I'm able to go in there and curtail the student discipline and see significant gains in student achievement every year, whether that's small increments or huge increments, I think by definition that would be a turnaround leader for a principal put in that tough school. So given that definition, my own definition, I would have to say yes, I am. Over the past 3 years, that has been the case.
And I think as we think about a turnaround leader, and as we think about just a principal who is assigned to a school, some of the things that you mentioned, the trash, just the beautification of the grounds and things, getting kids out of the hall. Normally, if you go into a typical school, they don't have to address those kind of things. And so there's a little difference there between a turnaround leader and just a principal who goes into a regular setting, because they don't necessarily have to be concerned with achievement, although, as a principal, you're always concerned with achievement, but usually achievement is pretty good at those schools. Mm-hmm. And so I'm just hearing some of the things that you talked about, the quick wins, getting the kids out of the hallway. Mm-hmm. Going into a regular school setting, they don't deal with those kind of things.
Right.
So once you dealt with those urgent things, where people felt safe and you were working on the perception piece, how did you get to the student achievement piece?
Well, you have to get teachers to own their data. One of the things that we implemented was if you have failures in your classroom, then teachers must make a phone call to the parent's house each grading period, which is every 4.5 weeks in Douglas County. So they have to keep these parent logs and keep in contact with the parents to make sure that they are aware of the struggles of their students. And that makes teachers work a little harder in the classroom because honestly, they don't like making a whole bunch of failure phone calls. And then at some point, you start seeing the same teachers having the same failures, but the same students will go next door and do very well and will do well on the state assessment at the end of the year. Another thing that we do is have teachers submit their data as far as CRCT results at the end of the school year individually. So one of my great teachers, they've created an Excel spreadsheet, and they put in every student name and every score. It gives them their percent per class that passed, met or exceeded, and their overall percent. So I'm able to look at teacher success every year, whether they may have had an off year because of whatever, but I can see their progression or lack of results every year, and the consistency of some in their greatness and the consistency of some in their weaknesses, and I'm able to address teachers and pretty much identify teachers by that mechanism. Another thing that we do is we have teachers report on their RTI data, and to me, like RTI is not us sitting here talking about students, is when they get the students into the room and actually do something with the students. So our faculty meetings have basically been turned into RTI meetings, which revolve around the CC-RPI measurement. And teachers get up, I'll do an introduction during our faculty meetings, but each teacher will get up and talk about their RTI data and how they've affected change in their student achievement over the course of that month.
Is that every teacher?
Every teacher.
Wow,
Yes.
So teaching and student results is more public.
It is very public.
And there's a common sharing
There
that
is a
goes
common
on.
sharing.
It's not the old paradigm of I go in my classroom, shut my door, it's my kids, my schedule, my space, I do my own thing.
Yes, and not only that, I know some schools will post like results on the walls. We don't necessarily do that, but on email, that's fair game. So when results come out, teacher name, success rate beside it, and that just keeps everyone on their toes, if you will. I know there may be some apprehension about that, but it has worked for 3 years.
Kwame, I've been in your school. Of course, I took Georgia Public Broadcasting, and we interviewed many of your staff and your students. You have what you call a leadership team, and you also have what you call a focus team. Tell us the difference between those.
Well, the focus team is designed around our focus students, and we were identified as a focus school because of our achievement gap between our special education students and our white students, one being the higher scoring and the other being the lowest scoring in social studies and science. So the focus team consists of the social studies chairperson and the science chairperson, and the special education, we call them ed evaluators, chairperson. And we get together and we identify all of the students that are struggling in science and social studies. As a matter of fact, we take all of the SWD students and we just track them and monitor them, make sure that they are indeed participating in the RTI process. Our teachers have 2 planning periods, so my directive to them was to make sure that you are seeing enough students to be effective. I did not quantify how many students you need to meet each month. It just better be sufficient enough for you to stand up in the faculty meeting and talk about it with fidelity. And if you're sitting there making up stories, it's not going to be very comfortable for you if you have to do that twice in a row. It's going to be quite evident because then your colleagues know that you're not telling the truth.
I can only imagine going into a school where probably the norms are already set and the norms are very low based on student achievement and teacher behavior. What leadership qualities do you have that helped you the most in that situation?
I stole my leadership qualities, some of them from my previous leaders, and I learned a lot from you would be one of them. And then I had Mr. Bradley, Juanita Nelson, Mr. Allen, and the qualities that I have that I put together with that is my ability to, I guess, organize my thoughts and my plan of action and be whoever it is I need to be at any particular moment. So I can go from being like a dictator if I think things need to change, like immediately, and I want to see immediate change. I've been up in the morning, like at 4 a.m., typing emails about, I can remember specifically the way they were dismissing students. They would like send all the students to the cafeteria and dismiss from there after school, and that was just horrible. So we just started dismissing by bus, and teachers would stay. Teachers were trying to leave at 3:40 instead of waiting for the kids to be dismissed from the classroom. So that's one of the things that changed immediately. That needed I had to be a dictator in that spot. It took me 2 days to realize that method of dismissing students wasn't going to work. That's where your fights and everything start happening. Sometimes I just sit back and allow others to lead, and actually we are all equals in distributive leadership, allowing people to bring their ideas to the table. Now, if I have someone who's going to do like a career day or STEM day at the school or design and awards program, you're not going to get my input. You're going to own that piece. You can keep me updated, tell me something that sounds good, but I'm not going to give you, I'll give you some money to help you, get it done, but I'm not going to give you any creative ideas on how I think it should look, because I believe that if it's your idea and you want to do it, then you need to own it. I give you all the credit, and I'll sit there and tell the world that I had nothing to do with it. I just walked in the door. So in those cases, I distribute leadership. So it runs the gamut. Transformational leadership is the term that we used at Mercer University, and so I believe I am a transformational leader. I can go and be either one at any given moment. Just depends on the moment, and the moment changes. As you all know, constantly as a principal. You just have to be. You can be this 5 minutes, and then somebody else walks in the door, and you're something else totally, and it's ongoing constantly.
I know probably you encountered a lot of problem-solving decisions that you had to make coming into a situation like that. Are you a big picture person, or are you a detail person?
I know we tend to try to put us principals and leaders in one or the other box. I think I'm kind of both. Okay. I can see the big picture, because I know at the end of the day, what we can do as far as achievement. I think we are the best middle school in Georgia. If you take schools that are similar to ours and look at our successes across the state, you know, our results they're pretty good. You know, comparing middle schools, Title I, with our student population and our free and reduced lunch rate, we're pretty significant in that regard. The big picture is we're going to be successful. The little picture is that we have to do this to get there. And I'm very good at putting pieces together, even difficult pieces like teacher keys is coming upon us, Common Core is upon us. And all of these things are coming at us, and education is changing rapidly, and it's hard to keep up. And we get new information almost weekly. CCRPI measurement is another change. I'm able to put all that in one nice, neat package for students and for teachers so that they have a mechanism that they can work off of. So, and that takes a lot of detail to be able to do that, to simplify that, to get to the big piece. So I think one of my talents as a leader, again, is strong organizational skills and the ability to see things, you know, on both ends and be able to create a plan that's easy to understand without overwhelming people.
You know, it sounds like you're a good problem solver, and you're solving those problems at 4 a.m.
Yes.
Okay. How do you engage your teachers in some problem solving? I mean, it sounds like that happens a little bit with the RTI, the response to intervention process, but talk about with the teams maybe that you mentioned, the focus team or your leadership team, of taking issues or obstacles or student achievement and trying to move the needle to the next level. What kind of problem solving, how do y'all do that?
Each year during pre-planning, we get everybody in the room during our first faculty meeting, and towards the end of the meeting typically, I will go person per person, regardless of their job description, and tell them exactly what it is I need them to do. I don't really prescribe how they get it done, but I will tell them exactly what it is. Like, for example, the art teacher. I need to see more creative art on the wall, things that our children are doing. There's this great display case out here in the hallway that no one's using. Why don't you put some art out there and maybe have our students competing in some competitions on the local level to see, you know, how good we can compete, because I think you're a great art teacher, and she is. And so by going down the line and just expressing the expectations for everyone and allowing them to then come up with their own creative ideas, I think that kind of nips that in the bud from the beginning, and that's not necessarily something that I have to maybe worry about, because I know that they know that they have the freedom to do what they need to do, but they also know my expectation up front, and that kind of makes everything transparent, because everyone hears what I'm telling the other person. And so it's like an open, and I even talk to myself, you know, I know I have these flaws and I need to work on this, I need to do X, Y, Z, and so it's a very open and transparent process at the beginning, and I think that helps a lot.
Absolutely.
So you probably didn't even know it, but you were just describing one of the competencies of a turnaround leader, and that is influencing for results. That's an excellent example, and also of accountability too, because you have everyone there and you say, look, I want to see some more art. This is what I want to see. And then you came back and you believed in the teacher. You said, the person's a good art teacher. So that's one of the competencies that we look for, and that's one of the things that in coming into a turnaround situation, influencing for results is required. You need that. So how do you spread the influence of those excellent teachers and minimize the influence of those ineffective teachers? So have you had any situations like that where you've come in and you looked at your more effective teachers and you utilize them more and minimize the ineffective? Have you had any situations?
Yeah. When you create an environment of trust and creativity where there's structure and organization, the creativeness of your teachers is going to automatically come out. You can just see it. It just pours out. And at some point, the ones who are not as creative or disgruntled or mad at you, or it's going to become obvious because the look on their face changes and they feel the pressure to be better. They're going to get better because they know they have to get better. But eventually they kind of weed themselves out, and you'll start getting these references on the email, to fill out to go to other districts. I'm actually getting that now because I have a lot of great teachers in the building, and I don't say that lightly. I have a lot of great teachers in the building that they were just waiting for the opportunity to show what they can do. And so they kind of weed themselves out. Again, not something I do have some teachers in mind that probably need to go. And I do have conversations with them about, raising their level of achievement and expectations for themselves. But by and large, at this point, this is year 3. The writing is on the wall for them because now the great teachers are even talking to other teachers like, look, this is not what we do at Turner. We don't sit around and complain. We don't bash our kids. We don't talk about other adults. So it's like caught on. Positivity is a must, in words and in actions at Turner. And that's another thing that we promote highly, positive behaviors.
So you are completing your 3rd year?
Yes.
So in thinking back, if you had to do this over again, what lessons have you learned? And how would you do anything differently?
The lesson that you learn is you can have 1,000,000 wins, and the 1,000,001st person that complains can suck you dry. And that it's always ongoing. You fight for those wins every day, and you just need encouragement. So I need to remain focused on the fact that adults need encouragement. Teachers need encouragement to do what they do every day. They have a very tough job. They need to know when they're doing a good job. They need that pat on the back. And it's not always about a glowing evaluation. It's just a smile and a handshake to say, great job. I appreciate you going the extra mile here. Appreciate you coming to work. I know you're not feeling good today. So those types of things are very critical in the school environment.
So how do you keep going when the going gets tough?
How do I keep going?
Yeah.
When I drive up to work, I don't have any ill will towards anyone, and I don't think anyone has any ill will towards me. I don't frown up, and I don't say, man, I don't wish I was here. I do wish I was at Turner. I like driving up to my school, and I like going around every morning. I go around, walk the whole campus, shake all of the teachers' hands, and say good morning. And all of the kids, not all of them, but a lot of the kids, good morning, Mr. Carr. It's like contagious. And so now the kids are speaking, and that keeps me going right there. Even the days where, I may not feel 100%. I've never gotten in the building and was like, I need to go because, I'm just not feeling it today. It's just a great environment to be in, and I think we all keep each other uplifted and motivated.
I have to share an observation, and that was in an interview with an assistant principal, and I'll just say he looked like a big football player, and he said to me, I don't want to get on Mr. Carr's bad side. And he followed that by saying, he said, I wouldn't be anyplace else. He said, I've been here a long time, but he said, I've seen a lot of things. And he said, I love these kids and I love this school. And he said, at first I began to wonder, but he said, I absolutely truly believe this is the best middle school in Georgia. And just an observation.
Sam, can you share with us some of the research on the difference between a good principal in a good conventional high school and those qualities that we see in turnaround leaders that are not just skills and knowledge that they learned in college or in their training programs, but those competencies that are those underlying patterns of thinking and feeling that we see in turnaround leaders that we might not see in a good principal in a high-performing school. What are those differences?
It's a very thin line between both, and you and I had conversation about this before, and it's and when I reflect and I think about it, it's the situation that dictates the competencies that you bring into it. In a turnaround setting, you're going to a school that's in a state of emergency, essentially. And you got to go in there, and there's some things you got to do immediately. And so you may not always do it in a very democratic way. as Kwame alluded to, you may be very autocratic and kind of dictating what people will and telling people what to do, more so because you got to get the job done immediately. These kids are here right now, and they got to perform, and you got to get the teachers. And so in a situation that is not a turnaround, you go in and there's certain things that you expect. Student achievement may be okay, it may not be where you want it, but you go in and you may be more of a democratic person. You may have more committees and do things like that, be more diplomatic because you don't have that sense of urgency. And I think that sense of urgency is the difference between them both, because as I think about it, the qualities bleeds over, because going into a regular situation, you still need to be able to analyze data. You still need to be able to influence others. But you got time to do that. Whereas in a state of emergency, you don't have time. You got to get it done right now. And so I think those are some of the, and you don't have to worry about small wins. Because see, small wins motivate the people. It's like playing football. Every time you go 10 yards, people hooray and they're happy. But when and so you do 10 and 10 and 10, and finally you get a touchdown, and people are, doing all kinds of celebration. And so it's that kind of mindset with the small win. So it's a very fine thing. And I don't know if you want to add anything, but I think it's a situation that dictates the competencies that you bring to it.
Right. I think too, and we heard Kwame allude to that in the cafeteria situation. 2 days he turned that around. Yeah. And we see that rapid problem solving cycle in a turnaround school because you don't have time. It's got to happen for these kids and these teachers very quickly. So I think that rapid problem solving cycle is really critical.
Yeah, and you're absolutely right, because Kwame alluded to, he was up at 4 in the morning and he had to tell them, this is the way we're going to do it. We don't have time to get a committee to study it. Right. It's urgent. So those are, it's very fine, and I still struggle myself with that because I think that good principals have all those competencies, but the situation dictates which one is more dominant, if you will, than the others. And
Kwame or Sam, either one, or Gary can comment on the fact that it's the results you're after. It's really the results that the kids produce. Right. So talk about how we get those results quickly.
Setting up the environment for teachers to teach, getting the kids out of the hallway, holding them accountable every day, and making sure teachers are teaching, making sure that they have lesson plans and that their lesson plans actually correlate to what they're doing in the classroom, making sure that they're teaching based on standards and teaching the curriculum we use the learning focus model incorporated with backwards design. And we just make sure that we are about the business of education. So we try to remove all of the fluff and get down to the heart and the meat of it, and anything that hinders that process, we eliminate. It's already been written. I mean, the formula's already there. Students come to school, they get breakfast, they go to class, teachers teach. And that's what we do. And I have to look at every aspect of the school day that is designed that hinders that process and eliminate it so that can happen. This is just as simple as that. Those other things that are required, that comes with the territory and the job. But, I try to minimize and, like I said earlier, simplify things so that there's not a lot of pressure outside of teaching. And so the results come from time on task and maximizing the amount of instruction that can take place during the school day. And the results come from changing the mindset of the teachers about the ability of the students and changing the students' mind and refocusing the school to have them believe and know that we are the best middle school in Georgia. And that makes them competitive, not only with their peers in the classroom, but with other schools. And so now what we're seeing when results come out, Turner's not on the bottom anymore. We're kind of moving up and we're surpassing other schools, and all of them aren't Title I, and they don't like that.
That's good. That's good. Now, one of the things you mentioned is a characteristic of a turnaround leader is to look for those things in the school that are ineffective and move them out. Mm-hmm. Sometimes we're always looking at what we should be doing, and not focusing on what we shouldn't be doing.
Right.
So can you give a specific example of something that you said we're not doing this anymore, or we're going to eliminate this because it's not giving us the results we want?
Very simple things, and this almost sounds foolish, but very true. Keeping students in the hallway until they're quiet before they can come in. Walking students from class to class. And actually, for a while, from what I understand, there was not like a bell that dismissed students. Everybody's clock is not synchronized. Teachers either. They're not going to release on time. So getting kids into the classroom was very important. Book bags was a big issue. Kids can't have book bags. Now, you know how big these books are these days. And so you would have like battles about book bags. And I said, well, I had a book bag. I'm sure you did when you went to school. So kids were allowed to have book bags. But there were, individual fights about that daily. Teachers worrying about book bags, taken away from instructional time, worrying about a book bag being in the classroom. Silly things like that, just take away from instruction were totally eliminated. They had this thing called Taco Day. So every time they served tacos, lunch ran over like 45 minutes because the kids were making their tacos. And my first day as principal was Taco Day, right? They're like, oh, Mr. Carr, lunch is going to run over. Fourth period was already long because that's when we served lunch. And so lunch goes over, it trickles down. Fifth period is cut short, and then, you have to adjust the schedule. The bells are off. Teachers are complaining, So I'm like, no, I don't care what day it is. We're going to serve lunch within these 30 minutes that we have. And that just took a simple conversation with the cook. And she just changed some things that she was doing in the presentation of tacos on Taco Day. So that was a quick win. That was my very first quick win, was Taco Day. And Taco Day is not even, that was like a 10-year tradition. Yes. And that's a thing of the past now.
When we think about quick win, and that's one of the things we look for under one of the competencies. And what you said several times is that quick win, because when we think about quick wins, we always think about quick wins in terms of academic success. We don't think about quick wins as like, the taco thing, right. Which is good, or getting the kids out of the hall. Those are quick wins. And so how do you communicate those quick wins? Because you see it, but the teachers are in the classroom. So how do you communicate that to your staff?
Well, being the principal, you have the ability to command the PA system. So I give people their accolades for doing a good job, but at the same time sending the message that this can be done. You just have to be very creative in how you approach it, But the PA system works wonders. I also walk around with a bullhorn between class changes, and I'm heard. I don't do a lot of talking, but when it's time to talk, I will talk, like now. And so that's what I use, like the big voice, and I like to give people their due respect for their accomplishments, in light of trying to also show them that certain things are able to be accomplished.
Kwame, one of the reasons that we went to your school was because of the RISA school improvement specialist who's working with that school. Speak to that person.
Yes, Dr. Osendelli. I actually had a history with Dr. Osendelli from Fulton County. And I watched our science scores at Banneker High School improve significantly during the time that she was working with our science teachers and conducting professional development. So when I came to Turner, I was made aware that we will have a school improvement specialist. At the time, the school was in NI3, getting ready to slide into NI4, and then everything changed. And the CCRPI was introduced, and we had the year of the waiver, no harm year. And so that first year, we did not have Dr. Osendelli, but I was aware that she would be coming the second year. And we were having conversations during that first year. And basically I told the staff, we are a focus school for the achievement gap in science and social studies between our SWD and our white students. And for that reason, we're going to be receiving assistance from the state on a regular basis. And yes, we're going to have to do some extra work. And yes, you're going to have to work harder than you normally work. And yes, we're a Title I school, and you still have to work harder than a school that has students that are going to walk in and pass the test on day one. You have schools like that. And but this is not the time to whine and complain, because you signed a contract just like I did to make this happen. And so Dr. Osendeli is going to be here to assist us, and I don't need you acting like you don't want her here. Don't be rude. I said, as a matter of fact, you play like you don't know anything and play dumb, because what I need you to do is take all of her resources, because I've seen her work, and use those resources and make them your own, and put her to work, make her tired when she leaves here. And then that's how we're going to do it. And she loves coming to Turner. And matter of fact, all of the people who come and do professional development at Turner, they love coming because the teachers are very receiving, and they collaborate, and they ask a lot of good questions, and they invite them back. And we see successes just by being cooperative with Metro RESA and the Georgia Department of Education. Anytime you have people who have resources, have been there and done that, has seen successes, why would you turn that person away? It just doesn't make sense. So Dr. Osendeli is one of those people, and I've seen it firsthand prior to Turner, and that's where we are.
What do you want for your school next?
I want us to be the best middle school, not only in Georgia, but the United States of America, whatever that measurement would be. I want to be able to take students that are typically labeled at risk, that people don't believe can achieve, and have them achieve year in and year out, and be relentless in that effort. Wherever I am, I want that tradition to continue, and I want Turner Middle School to be the hallmark school in the country. We're going to start with Georgia. I want people to want to move to the area just because it's Turner Middle School.
Sam, do you have some parting words?
No, the conversation was great today, and I think, in listening to Kwame, he is a turnaround leader. And I think we want to make sure that when people talk about a turnaround leader, that they're talking about the competencies that we talked about here today, striving for results, influencing others, just those competencies that we can look at a turnaround leader through those same lens. And those are those competencies. And I think Susan, you got them down there. If you want to just show, because I think that's really important for people. So when we talk about turnaround leader, we're talking about competencies. We're not talking about Kwame's a nice guy. That's not a turnaround leader. Or we like Kwame, or he's dressed nice. Those are not characteristics of a turnaround leader. Susan, you want to kind of just outline what we're really talking about so the people out there will know what we mean when we talk about a turnaround leader?
Well, the most important thing is student achievement. Focusing on the students and getting then all your teachers, all your resources, all your building, all your grounds, everything's kind of working in concert to focus on what students can do. And a lot of times those leaders set very ambitious goals. They don't settle for just a little bit better, but they really do in their heart of hearts believe in kids' potential more than in their circumstances. So we see that. We see initiative and persistence. They have exceptional drive to succeed. Just like you said, you don't want to be a part of something that's not successful. And that's just in your DNA. And that you can face those obstacles even when they're numerous, and you have that perseverance. We also see, and you alluded to this too also, is being organized and being able to plan ahead. Being able to decide what needs to be done first, what's going to give you the biggest bang for the buck quickly for your students, those quick wins, and involving your teachers with that in terms of being able to be good problem solvers. And you've got the adults in the building that have those kids' best interests at heart, and that takes time to work together, to plan, to talk, to think through things, so you've created a space for that. And then you hold people accountable. And that takes monitoring, staying on top of it, and sometimes you have to be direct. And having those very clear expectations that you mentioned, like in the faculty meeting at the beginning of the year. And that's so public and so transparent. That's pretty powerful. Being able to impact and getting people to follow you. So there's a lot of things that you mentioned that encourages people to follow you, because people want to be a part of a successful school. problem solving, got to have that. Like you said, got to have both, really. You got to have the big picture, conceptual, this is where we're going, this is our vision, and you also have to have those step-by-step analytical things. And then the last competency is self-confidence, that you believe in yourself and believe in those that are around you, and that you're willing to take those risks, go out on a limb if you have to do what needs to be done for the students.
That's the lens that we want to look through, as Susan outlined. We want to look through those lenses when we talk about a turnaround leader. And so the intent of this session here today was to really outline those cluster of competencies for everyone, so when we go throughout the state of Georgia, we all know what we're talking about when we're talking about a turnaround leader. And I think Kwame's a good example of that today. Thank you.
Sam, I'd like to thank you, and Kwame and Susan, for sharing your thoughts with us today. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.